At 72, a woman prepares to fulfill her dream of playing the piano in public. But inside her own home, someone begins to sabotage her in secret, replacing her medicine with harmful substances. With her granddaughter's help, she uncovers the truth and starts a quiet fight to reclaim her freedom and her music. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and let us know what city you're watching from. Now, on with the story. The piano keys responded under Mary's fingers as if they had always belonged to her. At 72, each note that bloomed from the instrument carried the weight of decades of deferred dreams, silent sacrifices, and a passion that was finally finding its voice. The afternoon sun filtered through the living room curtains, creating a play of light and shadow on the ivory keys she caressed with the devotion of a worshipper in prayer. 3 years. 3 years since Edward, her son, had brought that mahogany upright piano home, saying it was a gift for her new phase of life. "You always said you wanted to learn, Mom. Now you have the time," he had said, with that warm smile that always melted her heart. And she gave herself to the instrument as she had never given herself to anything in her life, except her children. Mary Johnson had always been a family woman. She married young, raised 3 children almost single-handedly, while her husband worked long hours, and then, when he passed away 10 years ago from severe pneumonia, she dedicated herself entirely to her grandchildren. But now, in Edward's spacious house, with her granddaughter Sophia already a teenager and more independent, she had finally found her personal purpose. Her fingers glided through the Chopin melody she had been practicing for the recital. Yes, a recital. At 72 years old, Mary Johnson was preparing for her first public performance. The City Conservatory had created a special program for adult beginners, and she was set to be one of the stars of the evening. The event was just 2 weeks away, and she could barely contain her excitement. "Grandma, you're playing beautifully today," said Sophia, appearing at the living room doorway. The 15-year-old girl had inherited the family's dark eyes and a sensitivity that always impressed Mary. "Mom said you're really going to play in public." Mary's face lit up. "I sure am, sweetheart. After a lifetime of dreaming, my time has finally come." Sophia came closer and sat beside her on the piano bench. "Tell me again how this all started." Mary smiled, her hands still gently stroking the keys. "When I was your age, Sophia, my mother worked as a housekeeper in a wealthy family's home. Sometimes I'd go with her, and they had a beautiful grand piano in the main living room. I would hide and listen to their daughter play, imagining how wonderful it would be to make that music. I promised myself that one day I would play too. So why did it take so long? Life has its own plans, honey. I got married early, had kids, took care of the family. But you know what I've learned? It's never too late to make a dream come true. Your piano teacher, Mrs. Clark, taught me that." Sophia nodded, but Mary noticed a shadow cross the girl's face. "What is it, sweetie?" "Oh, it's nothing, Grandma, it's just—" Sophia hesitated. "Sometimes I feel like Mum doesn't really like your music." Mary stopped playing. Christine, her daughter-in-law, had always been a complex woman. Beautiful, vain, concerned with appearances, she had forced Sophia into piano lessons for years, but the girl never showed any real interest in the instrument. When Mary started playing, she noticed something shifted in the house's dynamic. "Why do you say that?" "She says you make too much noise, that you should have other hobbies more suitable for your age. Yesterday I heard her telling Dad that it's ridiculous for a 72-year-old to want to show off in public." The words hit Mary like a dagger. She knew Christine didn't fully approve of her passion for the piano, but she hadn't imagined the comments were so harsh. Edward had never mentioned anything, always supporting her and taking pride in her progress. "Sophia, you shouldn't worry about these things. Sometimes adults say things without thinking." But inside, Mary felt a tightness in her chest. Over the last few months, she had noticed Christine seemed more distant, more irritated by her presence. Family dinners had become tense, and she often caught her daughter-in-law watching her with an expression she couldn't decipher. "Grandma," Sophia held her hand, "I think what you're doing is beautiful, and I'm going to be in the front row at your recital, giving you a standing ovation. Mary squeezed her granddaughter's hand, feeling her eyes well up. "Thank you, my dear. That means the world to me." Just then, Christine appeared in the room. Tall, blonde, always impeccably dressed even at home, she observed the scene with a forced smile. "Sophia, don't you have homework to do? And Mary, could you perhaps practice later? I'm trying to talk to an important client on the phone." "Of course, dear," Mary replied, gently closing the piano lid. "Sorry for the trouble." Christine gave a vague nod and left the room, but not before Mary caught that look again. There was something there, something that made her stomach churn without her knowing why. That night at dinner, Edward enthusiastically discussed the recital. "Mom, I've already cleared my schedule. I wouldn't miss your debut for anything. Christine, have you seen how well she's playing?" Christine poked at her salad with little interest. "Of course, she's very dedicated." "Dedicated?" Edward laughed. "She's a natural talent. Her teacher said she's never seen someone her age with so much aptitude." "That's nice," Christine murmured, but Mary noticed how her fingers tightened on her fork. Later, when everyone else was asleep, Mary lay awake in her room, staring at the ceiling. Something was wrong in the house, she could feel it. At 72, she had learned to trust her intuition, and it was screaming that Christine wasn't just annoyed with her music. There was something deeper, darker behind those looks. She got up silently and went to the window. Down below in the garden, she saw a light on in Edward's home office. Christine was in there on the phone, gesturing nervously. Even though she couldn't hear the words, her body language was unmistakable. Anger, frustration, and something that looked like desperation. Mary went back to bed with a shiver running down her spine. In 2 weeks, she would fulfill a lifelong dream. But for the first time since she started playing the piano, she wondered if she would make it there. A storm was brewing in her own home, and she was right in the middle of it, without even knowing why. The next morning brought with it a seemingly normal routine, but Mary woke up with a strange sensation in her hands, a subtle, almost imperceptible stiffness, which she attributed to the cold night. At 72, minor discomforts were part of daily life, and she didn't pay much attention to the symptom. In the kitchen, Christine was already preparing breakfast with her usual efficiency. She wore a blue silk robe that highlighted her light eyes and kept her blonde hair perfectly coiffed, even though she had just woken up. It was one of the things that always intrigued Mary, how her daughter-in-law managed to look flawless at any time of day. "Good morning, Mary," Christine said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Have you taken your vitamins today?" "Not yet, dear. Thanks for reminding me." Christine went to the cabinet where the medications were kept and took out the small blue plastic pill organizer Mary used for her supplements. "Here you go. The doctor always recommends taking them on an empty stomach for better absorption." Mary took the capsules, vitamin D, calcium, a B complex and an anti-inflammatory for her joints, and swallowed them, with a sip of warm water. It was a routine she had followed religiously for years, always lovingly supervised by Christine, who prided herself on taking care of the family's health. "Did Edward already leave for work?" Mary asked. "He left early today. He has an important meeting with investors. Said he might be late." Sophia appeared in the kitchen, still in her pajamas, her brown hair messy and that sleepy look typical of teenagers. "Morning, Grandma. Are you going to practice piano today?" "Of course, sweetheart. 12 days until the recital. I need to be perfect." Christine turned from the stove where she was stirring some scrambled eggs. "Sophia, didn't you say you have a math test today? Shouldn't you be studying instead of thinking about the piano?" The girl looked down. "I already studied yesterday, Mum." "Studying just once isn't enough for someone with your grades, Sophia. You should follow your grandmother's example, who spends hours and hours practicing the same song." The comment carried a veiled acidity that didn't go unnoticed by Mary. She looked at Christine, trying to decipher the expression on her daughter-in-law's face, but the woman had already turned back to the stove. After breakfast, Mary went to the music room. She sat at the piano and positioned her fingers on the keys to begin her warm-up exercises. It was then she noticed the stiffness had gotten worse. Her fingers didn't respond with their usual agility, especially the index and middle fingers of her right hand. Must be my age, she muttered to herself, forcing her fingers to move. The melody came out unevenly, with some notes sounding stuck or delayed. Mary frowned, worried. In 12 days, she would be on the stage of the city conservatory in front of an audience of 200 people. She took a deep breath and started again, this time more slowly. Chopin's Ballade No. 1 had always been her favorite piece, the one she had chosen for the recital. It was technically challenging, but it carried an emotion that touched her soul. Each note told a story of struggle, overcoming, and redemption, exactly how she felt about her own journey. But that morning, the music wouldn't flow. Her hands seemed disconnected from her mind, as if there were a fog between her intention and the execution. Mary stopped and massaged her fingers, trying to relax the tense muscles. "Having trouble?" asked Christine, appearing at the doorway. No, just a bit of morning stiffness. Nothing a little practice won't fix." Christine approached, carrying a glass of water. "Maybe it's over-practicing. You've been spending a lot of hours in here. The body needs rest too." "I know, dear, but there are so few days left." "That's exactly why. If you injure yourself now from overuse, you could jeopardize everything." Mary accepted the glass of water and took a sip. "You're right. Maybe I should take a break." "Good that you understand." Christine smiled, but there was something calculating in that smile. "By the way, I just remembered I need to go to the mall today. Sophia's coming with me. Will you be okay on your own?" "Of course. Maybe I'll take the opportunity to rest a bit." After Christine and Sophia left, Mary tried to play again. The stiffness persisted, now accompanied by a tingling sensation that crept up her wrists. Worried, she stopped playing and went to search online for possible causes of these symptoms: arthritis, osteoarthritis, carpal tunnel syndrome, tendinitis. The possibilities were many and all concerning for someone who depended on her hands to achieve her dream. Mary felt panic begin to take over her thoughts. She tried calling Edward, but it went straight to voicemail. She left a brief message, not wanting to sound alarmist. "Hi, honey. Call me when you can. Nothing serious, just wanted to talk." The rest of the morning passed slowly. Mary tried some light household chores, but noticed that even holding a teacup was becoming uncomfortable. The tingling had intensified, and now she felt a dull ache radiating from her fingers to her shoulders. When Christine and Sophia returned from the mall, it was mid-afternoon. Sophia was carrying a few bags and seemed excited, but her mood changed when she saw her grandmother's worried face. "Grandma, what happened? You look pale." "My hands are bothering me today, sweetie. Maybe I really did overdo it with the practice." Christine dropped her shopping bags and approached, immediately assuming her dedicated nurse persona. "Let me see." Mary held out her hands, and Christine examined them with apparent care. "They're a little swollen. Did you feel any pain during the night?" "No. It started this morning. Everything was fine yesterday. This could be acute inflammation. It sometimes happens when we force repetitive movements too." "Much. Have you been taking your anti-inflammatories properly?" "Yes, as always. You give them to me every day." "Good. I'll increase the dose today and give you a cold compress. If it doesn't get better by tomorrow, we'll see a doctor." Sophia watched the scene with growing concern. "Grandma, what about the recital?" "Everything will be fine, my dear. It's just a minor issue." But inside, Mary felt her world starting to crumble. 12 days. She had only 12 days for her hands to fully recover, 12 days to fulfill a lifelong dream. That night, the pain had intensified so much that Mary could barely hold her fork during dinner. Edward had finally returned her calls and promised to take her to the doctor the next day if the symptoms persisted. "Don't worry, Mom. It might just be an arthritis flare-up. With the right treatment, you'll be playing perfectly in 2 weeks." "Of course," said Christine, serving dessert. "And if necessary, I can even do some physical therapy sessions with you. I learned some techniques when I was taking care of my mother." Mary smiled gratefully, never suspecting that the very person offering help was the architect of her suffering. Christine had carefully swapped the contents of the anti-inflammatory capsules with substances that caused the exact opposite: inflammation, swelling, and pain. While the family slept, Christine lay awake in her room, planning her next steps. 12 days was more than enough time to ensure Mary would never set foot on that stage, and best of all, no one would ever suspect the dedicated daughter-in-law who cared so much for her mother-in-law's well-being. The third day after the symptoms began brought a deterioration Mary could never have imagined. She woke before dawn with a throbbing pain that shot up her arms, like liquid fire. Her hands were visibly swollen, her fingers stiff as claws, and any movement sent waves of agony through her body. Sitting on the edge of the bed, Mary tried to flex her fingers and nearly cried out. The tears came involuntarily, not just from the physical pain, but from the terror settling in her heart. In 10 days, she was supposed to be on the stage of the city conservatory. In 10 days, she would realize the dream she had nurtured for a lifetime. "It can't be," she whispered to herself, forcing her fingers to move millimeter by millimeter. "Not now, not when I'm so close." The sound of footsteps in the hallway made her quickly wipe away her tears. Christine appeared at the door, already dressed and put together despite the early hour, carrying a tray with coffee and medication. "How are you feeling today, Mary? I brought your breakfast and your medicine. The doctor always says it's important to stick to the routine, even when we're not feeling well." Mary looked at her daughter-in-law, trying to hide the desperation in her voice. "It's worse, Christine, much worse. I can barely move my fingers." "Oh dear." Christine approached and placed the tray on the nightstand, putting on an expression of motherly concern. "Let me see your hands." Mary held out her trembling hands, and Christine examined them with theatrical care. "They really are swollen. I'm going to increase the dose of the anti-inflammatory even more. Sometimes the body needs a larger amount to respond to treatment. Do you think it will go away in time for the recital?" Christine hesitated for just a second before answering, but it was long enough for a shadow of satisfaction to cross her eyes. "Well, Mary, we have to be realistic. Inflammations like this can take weeks, sometimes months, to fully resolve. Maybe it would be best to consider postponing your performance." The words hit Mary like a punch to the gut. "Postpone? But I've prepared so much. It's the special program for adult beginners. If I miss this chance, there might not be another one. I understand your frustration, but health comes first. You wouldn't want to go on stage and not be able to play properly, would you? It would be embarrassing for everyone." Christine's condescending tone made Mary shrink. For the first time in months, she felt exactly like what Christine was suggesting. An old, inadequate woman trying to do something that wasn't for her age. "Take your medicine," Christine said, handing her the capsules and a glass of water. "And today, try to rest completely. No piano." Mary swallowed the pills mechanically, unaware she was ingesting another dose of the substances that were destroying her dreams. Christine had increased not only the quantity, but also the potency of the inflammatory compounds, ensuring the symptoms would become unbearable. Later that morning, Sophia came home from school early due to a free period. She found her grandmother, sitting in the music room, staring blankly at the closed piano, silent tears streaming down her face. "Grandma, what happened?" Mary tried to smile but couldn't hide the devastation in her expression. "My hands, sweetie. I can't play. I can't even open the piano lid." Sophia came closer and gently took her grandmother's hands, examining the swelling and redness. "This doesn't seem normal, Grandma. Have you taken any new medicine? Changed anything in your routine?" "No, nothing. Christine has been giving me the same medicine as always. She just increased the dose because I wasn't getting better." "Something in—" Her grandmother's tone made Sophia frown. "Increased the dose? Since when?" "Since the day before yesterday. She said sometimes the body needs more anti-inflammatory to respond." Sophia was silent for a moment, processing the information. As the child of divorced parents from a young age, she had developed a keen sensitivity for detecting when something wasn't right in family relationships, and something about her grandmother's situation didn't add up. "Grandma, do you remember if your hand started hurting before or after you started taking the higher dose?" Mary thought carefully. I think it started the morning after she increased the dose." "Why?" "Just curious," Sophia replied, but her mind was already racing. "Where does Mum keep your medicine?" "In the kitchen cabinet, as always. Why are you asking, Sophia? The girl shrugged, trying to seem casual. No reason. Just want to understand better so I can help you. Just then, Christine entered the room carrying an ice pack. Sophia, shouldn't you be at school? I got out early today. I was worried about Grandma. How sweet of you. Christine's smile was perfectly maternal, but Sophia noticed how her mother's eyes narrowed slightly. I'm going to apply ice to her hands. Why don't you go do your homework? Can I stay here and help? That's not necessary, dear. I'll take care of everything. Sophia reluctantly left, but not before exchanging a meaningful look with her grandmother. There was something in her mother's insistence that she leave that aroused her suspicions even more. For the rest of the afternoon, Mary tried various simple tasks to test the functionality of her hands. She couldn't open a jar of jam, sign her name legibly, or even hold a pen properly. The pain was constant now, a throbbing presence that dominated every thought. Edward came home early, worried about his mother's condition. When he saw her hands, he was visibly shocked. "Mom, this is so much worse than yesterday. We're going to the doctor right now." "I think so too," Mary said, feeling a spark of hope. "Maybe a specialist can do something." Christine quickly intervened. "Edward, you know what the ER is like. We'll wait for hours just for a doctor to say exactly what I've already said, that she needs rest and anti-inflammatories. We can make an appointment with the rheumatologist tomorrow, but she's in a lot of pain." "That's exactly why. The stress of an emergency room will only make the inflammation worse. First thing tomorrow, I'll make the appointment myself." Edward hesitated, torn between concern for his mother and trust in his wife, who had always been responsible for the family's health care. "All right," he conceded, "but first thing tomorrow, promise." That night, Mary barely slept. The pain was unbearable, but worse than that was the despair growing in her chest. In 9 days, other people would be on the stage of the city conservatory realizing their dreams, while she would be at home, defeated by a body that had failed her at the most important moment. Around 3 in the morning, she got up to go to the bathroom and heard low voices coming from the kitchen. Curious and unable to sleep anyway, she approached silently. "Are you sure this is going to work?" It was Edward's voice, tense and worried. "Trust me," Christine replied with icy confidence. "In a week, she won't even be able to remember what it felt like to want to get on that stage. She'll understand it was for the best." "But if she finds out, how is she going to find out? She trusts me completely. And even if she gets suspicious, who's going to believe I'd do something like this? I'm the one who takes care of her every day." Mary backed away, the blood running cold in her veins. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. Edward knew. Her own son was involved in this. She returned to her room with trembling legs, her heart racing. Not only were her dreams being destroyed, but she had just discovered that the 2 people she trusted most in the world were orchestrating her ruin. The dawn brought a reality even crueler than Mary could have imagined. Her hands were now so swollen they looked like they belonged to someone else, and the pain had spread to her shoulders and neck, creating a web of suffering that made any movement torture. But worse than the physical agony was the devastating discovery from the night before. Her own son was involved in the conspiracy to destroy her dreams. Sitting on her bed, Mary tried to process what she had heard. The words of Edward and Christine echoed in her mind like a death sentence. How was it possible that the son she had raised with so much love, who had always supported her, was now participating in her humiliation? "Good morning, Mary," Christine said, entering the room with the usual tray. But this time, Mary saw through the facade. The fake smile, the theatrical care, the feigned concern. It all seemed grotesquely transparent now. "How are you feeling today?" "Worse," Mary answered, her voice choked, but not just from physical pain. "Much worse." "What a shame. I brought your medicine. Dr. Stevens always says that consistency in treatment is key to recovery." Mary looked at the capsules in Christine's hand as if they were venomous snakes. For the first time, she hesitated to take them. "Maybe I should wait until we see the doctor today." "Don't be foolish," Christine said, with a firmness that revealed her true nature. "Stopping the treatment now would be a terrible setback. You want to get better, don't you?" The words carried a subtle threat that made Mary tremble. She took the capsules and swallowed them, knowing she was contributing to her own destruction, but fearing the consequences of refusing. "Has Edward left already?" "He had to leave early for an urgent meeting, but he arranged everything for our doctor's appointment this afternoon." Of course he did, Mary thought bitterly. He couldn't even face his mother after what he had done. Later that morning, Sophia found her grandmother on the porch, staring blankly at the garden with an expression of deep melancholy. The teenager had spent the whole night thinking about the strange questions she had asked about the medicine and her mother's insistence on keeping her away. "Grandma, can I sit with you?" Mary nodded, trying to smile for her granddaughter, despite the pain consuming her thoughts. "You seem different today," Sophia observed with her sharp perception. "It's not just the pain in your hands, it's something else." Mary hesitated. How could she tell a teenager that her own mother was poisoning her grandmother? How could she destroy Sophia's trust in her family? "Sophia," she began carefully, "have you ever felt that something was wrong even when everyone around you said everything was fine?" "Always," Sophia answered without hesitation. "I felt it when my parents got divorced, even before they announced it. I feel it now, about you." "What do you mean?" "Your hands started hurting right when Mum increased your medicine. That's not a coincidence." Mary looked at her granddaughter in surprise. The girl had reached the same conclusion she had, but through pure observation and logic. "Sophia, what are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting that maybe the medicine isn't what Mom says it is." Sophia lowered her voice. "Can I investigate?" Mary felt a spark of hope for the first time in days. "How?" "Leave it to me. But you need to pretend you don't suspect anything. Can you do that?" Mary nodded, clinging to this unlikely partnership like a life raft. That afternoon, Christine took Mary to the doctor's office. Dr. Henry Stevens, an experienced rheumatologist, examined her, hands with professional concern. "This is a severe inflammation," he said, frowning. "But the symptoms are unusual for typical age-related arthritis. When exactly did it start?" 3 days ago, Mary replied. "And what medications have you been taking?" Christine stepped forward. "The usual, vitamin D, calcium, a B complex, and an anti-inflammatory for her joints. I increased the dose of the anti-inflammatory when the symptoms started." "Which anti-inflammatory specifically?" Christine hesitated for a fraction of a second. "Ibuprofen, 600 millikilograms." The doctor made notes. "I'm going to order some blood tests and prescribe a corticosteroid to reduce the inflammation. In the meantime, temporarily stop the ibuprofen. Sometimes, paradoxically, overuse can worsen inflammation." Mary saw Christine tense up visibly. "Doctor, I have a piano recital scheduled for 8 days from now. Is there any chance I'll recover in time?" Dr. Stevens looked at her hands again. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Johnson, but with this severe inflammation it will be impossible. Even with aggressive treatment, you'll need at least 3 weeks to regain proper function." The words hit Mary like a final blow. 3 weeks. The recital would be just a painful memory by then. On the way home, Christine made sure to cement her victory. "See, I told you it was better to give up on the idea from the start. The piano isn't for people your age." "Maybe you're right," Mary murmured, but inside, a flame of determination was beginning to ignite. When they got home, Sophia was doing homework at the kitchen table. Christine went upstairs to take a shower, leaving the two of them alone. "So?" Sophia whispered. "The doctor told me to stop the ibuprofen," Mary said quietly. "He said it might be making the inflammation worse." Sophia's eyes lit up. "That's what I was waiting to hear." The teenager got up and went to the medicine cabinet. With quick, precise movements, she photographed all the bottles with her phone, especially Mary's blue pill organizer. "Grandma, I need you to do something risky. Stop taking the medicine Mum gives you. Make up an excuse, pretend you forgot anything. But don't take anything else that comes from her. What if she gets suspicious? Leave it to me. In the meantime, I'm going to find out what's really in those pills." That night, for the first time in 3 days, Mary didn't take the medicine. She told Christine she was feeling nauseous and wanted to wait until her stomach settled. Christine insisted, but she couldn't force her without raising suspicion. During the night, Sophia quietly woke her grandmother. "I got it," she whispered, showing her phone. "I researched the side effects of all the substances I found in the cabinet. There's one capsule that shouldn't be there." Sophia showed a photo of a small bottle hidden behind the other medications. "Allopurinol combined with a compound I couldn't fully identify, but which can cause inflammation when used incorrectly. Mom is giving you this instead of ibuprofen." Mary looked at the evidence, feeling a mix of horror and relief. Horror at discovering the extent of the betrayal, but relief in knowing she wasn't going crazy. "What do we do now?" "First, you keep pretending to take the medicine. Second, we wait to see if your hands get better without these substances. Third, we gather more evidence." "What if she finds out?" Sophia held her grandmother's injured hand carefully. "She won't. And even if she does, it's 2 against 1 now. We're going to get your dream back, Grandma. I promise." For the first time in days, Mary felt that maybe there was still hope. But she also knew that the war was just beginning, and Christine would not give up easily on destroying everything she had worked so hard for. The first 2 days without taking the counterfeit medicine brought an improvement so subtle that Mary feared she was imagining things. But on the morning of the 3rd day, when she woke up, she noticed the swelling had slightly decreased and the throbbing pain had turned into a more bearable discomfort. It was minimal progress, but enough to confirm the terrible suspicions that now dominated her thoughts. Christine, however, was growing increasingly impatient with Mary's resistance to taking her medication regularly. "Mary, you're being irresponsible," she said that morning, holding the pill organizer with a poorly disguised expression of irritation. "You said you would take your medicine last night, but when I passed by your room, you were already asleep." "I'm sorry, dear. I was so tired I just forgot." "Forgot?" Christine's tone became more aggressive. "Do you want to get better or not? Because at this rate, your hands will never recover." Mary forced a submissive smile. "You're right, I'll take it right now." She took the capsules and made a motion as if to put them in her mouth, but she actually hid them under her tongue. She drank the water, swallowed visibly, and then discreetly spat the pills into her hand when Christine turned away. "There," she said, showing her empty hand. Christine watched her for a moment longer than necessary, and Mary felt a shiver of fear. There was something in her daughter-in-law's eyes she had never noticed before, a calculating coldness that made her blood run cold. "Good. Now, I'm going out to do some shopping. Sophia's at school, Edward's at work. Will you be okay on your own?" "Of course." As soon as Christine left the house, Mary ran to the bathroom and flushed the capsules down the toilet, watching them dissolve with a mixture of disgust and relief. Then she went to the music room and tried to play a few notes on the piano. Her fingers were still stiff and sore, but she managed to press a few keys without the agony of the previous days. The melody came out halting and uneven, but it was music. It was hope. Tears of relief streamed down her face. She wasn't going crazy. She wasn't getting too old to achieve her dreams. She was being deliberately sabotaged by the person she trusted most. Sophia arrived home from school in the mid-afternoon and found her grandmother in the kitchen, preparing a snack with more ease than she had shown in a week. "Grandma, your hands are better?" "A little," Mary whispered, looking nervously at the door. "Sophia, I need to tell you something terrible." And then she told her about the conversation she had overheard between Christine and Edward in the middle of the night, about the discovery that her own son was involved in the conspiracy. Sophia turned pale. "Dad too? But why?" "I don't know, sweetie. Maybe he really thinks I'm making a fool of myself. Maybe Christine convinced him it would be better for me to give up." "That's insane," Sophia burst out, but quickly lowered her voice. "Grandma, I got more information on those substances. I did some research during my breaks at school and found something important." Sophia showed her handwritten notes. She had learned to be cautious with digital trails. "The compound Mom is giving you doesn't just cause inflammation. It can cause permanent damage if used for a long time. Grandma, she's not just trying to stop your recital. She's trying to permanently disable you." The words hit Mary like a lightning bolt. Permanent damage. Christine didn't just want to humiliate her, she wanted to completely destroy her ability to play the piano. "Why would she do this to me, Sophia? What did I ever do to deserve so much hatred?" Sophia held her grandmother's hands carefully. "Grandma, remember when you started playing the piano and everyone started praising you? Remember how proud Dad was, how your friends from the conservatory admired you?" Mary nodded. "Mom has always been the center of attention in this house. She was always the most admired, most praised person. When you started to shine with your music, she stopped being special. And some people can't stand not being special." The simplicity and truth of the explanation cut deep. Christine was destroying her life out of pure envy. "What do we do now?" "First, you keep pretending to take the medicine until we have enough proof. Second, you have to start practicing in secret to make up for lost time. Third, we have to find out how involved Dad is." "Sophia, if your mother finds out, you know." "I know the risks, Grandma, but I can't let her destroy you. You're the only person in this house who has ever treated me like I was important." Mary's heart ached at her granddaughter's confession. That afternoon, when Christine returned from her shopping trip, she found Mary pretending to sleep on the living room couch, her hands carefully positioned to look like they were still very swollen. "How are you feeling?" Christine asked. "The same," Mary lied. "Maybe a little worse." Christine smiled, satisfied. "Maybe it's time to accept that some things just aren't meant for us. The important thing is to know when to stop before the ridiculous becomes embarrassing." The words were too cruel to be accidental. Christine wanted Mary to suffer emotionally as much as she was physically. During dinner, Edward came home more cheerful than he had been in days. "How are you feeling, Mum?" "Not too well," Mary replied, carefully watching her son's reaction. "That's a shame, but maybe it's for the best. You know, I cancelled a few appointments for the date of your recital. Now I can reschedule everything without a problem." The ease with which he spoke about cancelling his plans to support her revealed the truth. He had never really believed she would be able to perform. Or worse, he knew she would be stopped. Later, when everyone was asleep, Sophia quietly woke Mary. "I got something important," she whispered, showing her phone. "I filmed Mom messing with your pill organizer this morning, after you took your medicine. She was swapping the remaining capsules for others she took from a hidden bottle." The evidence was devastating. Christine wasn't just giving Mary fake medicine, she was constantly refilling the pill organizer to ensure the sabotage continued. "Sophia, is this enough to confront her?" "Not yet. We need more evidence and you need to be stronger. But Grandma..." Sophia hesitated. "There's something you need to know. I think Mom is planning something for tomorrow. I heard her on the phone talking about speeding up the process." "Speeding up the process?" "I don't know what it means, but it can't be good. You have to be very careful tomorrow, and don't take absolutely anything that comes from her." That night, Mary lay awake late, staring at the ceiling and wondering how far Christine would go to completely destroy her. The recital was in 5 days, but now she faced a much bigger battle than simply regaining her musical skills. She was fighting against a conspiracy that involved the people closest to her, and she was beginning to realize that her own safety could be at risk. 5 days until the recital, but first she would have to survive whatever Christine was planning for the next day. The dawn of the 5th day brought with it an atmosphere of tension that Mary could feel in the air like electricity before a storm. Christine woke up earlier than usual and moved through the house with a nervous energy that put Mary on high alert. There was something different about today, something that made her survival instincts scream danger. "Good morning, Mary," Christine said, entering the room with the usual tray, but this time she also carried a steaming cup. "I brought you a special tea, chamomile with honey. It will help with the pain and inflammation." Mary looked at the cup with suspicion. In a week of altered medications, Christine had never offered tea. "That's very kind of you, but I'm not in the mood for tea right now." "I insist," Christine said, with a firmness that allowed no refusal. "I made a point of preparing it especially for you. It would be an offense if you didn't drink it." Her daughter-in-law's tone had changed completely. There was no longer the pretense of motherly affection. It was almost an order, and Mary felt a chill run down her spine. "All right," she said, taking the cup with hands she tried to make tremble more than they actually were. "I'll drink it slowly. It's very hot." Christine remained in the room, watching Mary's every move with disturbing intensity. "You can drink it normally. I let it cool down enough." Mary brought the cup to her lips and pretended to take a sip, but in reality she only wet her lips. The liquid had a strange bitter taste beneath the sweetness of the honey, a bitterness that was definitely not chamomile. "It's delicious," she lied, lowering the cup, "but I think I'll finish it after breakfast." Christine's eyes narrowed. "Mary, you're being very difficult lately. Stop being dramatic and finish the tea now." The mask had fallen completely. There was no more pretense of care or affection. Christine spoke as if she were giving orders to a disobedient child. I'm not feeling well," Mary stammered, genuinely frightened now. "Maybe it's better to have it later. Finish the tea, Mary, now." Just then, Sophia appeared at the door. "Mom? Grandma? What's going on? I heard raised voices." Christine quickly recomposed her expression, but not quickly enough. Sophia saw the tension in the air and the fear in her grandmother's eyes. "Nothing, dear. I'm just trying to convince your grandmother to drink some medicinal tea, but she's being stubborn." Sophia looked at the cup in her grandmother's hand and then at Christine's face. Her teenage instincts, sharpened by days of suspicion, immediately picked up that something was very wrong. "Grandma, you don't even like chamomile. You've always said you prefer black tea." "That's true," Mary said quickly, mentally thanking her granddaughter's quick thinking. "I've never liked chamomile. It makes me nauseous." "What a shame," Sophia said, taking the cup from her grandmother's hand. "I can pour it out for you, Grandma." Christine moved quickly to intercept. "No need, Sophia. I'll take care of it." But Sophia was already leaving the room with the cup, ignoring her mother's protests. In the bathroom, she poured the contents down the toilet, but not before taking a picture of the liquid and capturing a little in a small vial she had brought from her chemistry class at school. When she returned to the room, she found Christine with an expression of barely contained rage. "Sophia, you shouldn't interfere with your grandmother's medical treatment." "Sorry, Mom, I was just trying to help." Christine looked at the two of them for a long moment, and Mary saw something dangerous moving behind those clear eyes. There was a silent threat in her daughter-in-law's expression that made Mary realize they had crossed a line. Christine was no longer just trying to stop the recital. She was willing to go much further. "Sophia, go get ready for school, now." "But Mom, now!" The shout was so unexpected and violent that both Mary and Sophia flinched. It was the first time Christine had completely lost control in front of them. Sophia left quickly, but not before exchanging a meaningful look with her grandmother. They were entering much more dangerous territory now. After Sophia left, Christine turned to Mary with an icy expression. "Mary, it seems you're recovering more quickly than I expected." "What do you mean?" "You know exactly what I mean." Christine approached the bed, her voice low and threatening. "Your hands are better. You haven't been taking the medicine properly." Mary tried to feign confusion. "Christine, I don't understand." "Stop pretending," Christine exploded. "Do you think I'm an idiot? Do you think I don't notice when someone is lying to me?" Christine's face was distorted by a fury that seemed to have been building for months. All the anger, envy, and resentment she had bottled up was finally coming out. "You came into this house and turned everything upside down," she continued, pacing like a predator. "Before you arrived, I was the center of this family. Edward admired me. Sophia respected me. Everyone saw me as the important one. Then you showed up with your pathetic little piano, and suddenly all anyone talks about is talented Mary, brave Mary, who's fulfilling her dreams at 72. Christine, shut up. You had your whole life to play the piano. Your youth, your middle age, decades of opportunities, and you wasted it all. Now you want to steal the attention that should be mine? You want to make everyone forget that I am the special person in this house?" The words came out like venom, each one revealing the depth of the bitterness Christine carried. You are not getting on that stage, Mary. Not tomorrow, not ever. Because people like you, people who missed their chance, don't deserve a second one. You should have stayed in your place, being the grateful little old lady who accepts scraps of attention. Mary felt tears burn her eyes, not just from the cruelty of the words, but from the revelation of the pure hatred Christine held for her. And if you think your little granddaughter is going to save you, you're dead wrong. Sophia is my daughter, and she will learn to be on my side, where she always should have been. The threat against Sophia made something inside Mary snap. Until that moment, she had been willing to accept the destruction of her own dreams if it meant peace in the family. But the suggestion that Christine could harm Sophia made her find a strength she didn't know she possessed. "You will not touch Sophia," Mary said, her voice trembling with anger instead of fear. Christine laughed, a cold, cruel sound. "Oh, I will. And you can't do a thing to stop me, because who's going to believe the word of a senile old woman against that of the dedicated wife who takes care of the whole family?" Just then, Edward appeared at the door. "What's going on in here?" I heard shouting from the backyard. Christine immediately shifted her expression to one of distressed concern. "Edward, thank God you're here. Your mother is having some kind of episode. She accused me of trying to poison her. Can you imagine? I think the medication is affecting her mind." Edward looked between the two women, visibly disturbed. "Mom." Mary looked at her son, seeing not just the person she had raised with love, but also someone who had agreed to the destruction of her dreams, and for a moment she felt more alone than she had ever felt in her life. "It's nothing, Edward. I think I really am a little confused from the medication." "See?" Christine said with veiled triumph. "Maybe it's time we consider more specialized care options for her." What she meant was clear. If Mary continued to resist, Christine would find ways to remove her from Sophia and Edward completely. After Edward left for work, Mary was left alone with her tormenting realization. She was trapped in a house with a woman who hated her deeply and was willing to destroy not only her but also Sophia to get what she wanted. There were only 4 days left until the recital, but now Mary realized that the music was the least of her problems. She was fighting for her own life and for the safety of her granddaughter. The afternoon brought a deceptive calm that made Mary feel like she was in the eye of a hurricane. Christine had left for what she said was a doctor's appointment, but Mary suspected it was to plan her next move. The morning's confrontation had changed everything. The cards were on the table now, and there was no more pretending a silent war wasn't being waged in that house. Sophia arrived home from school with a controlled urgency that immediately alerted Mary. "Grandma, we need to talk now." They locked themselves in Mary's room, and Sophia emptied a backpack full of evidence onto the bed. Photographs, notes, small vials with samples, and even a tiny digital recorder Mary didn't know her granddaughter owned. "I managed to get the tea Mom tried to give you today analyzed," Sophia said, showing a photo on her phone. "My chemistry teacher helped me without knowing what it was for. It has benzodiazepines mixed with other substances. Grandma, if you had drunk all of it, you could have gone into a coma." The words hit Mary like a punch. A coma. Christine wasn't just trying to sabotage her hands, she was trying to incapacitate her completely. "There's more," Sophia continued, her voice trembling slightly. "I managed to record part of her phone conversation last night. Listen to this." Sophia pressed play on the recorder, and Christine's voice filled the room. "No, I can't wait any longer. She's starting to suspect, and so is the girl. I need to speed up the process, and yes, I know it's risky, but if I don't do something drastic now, all my work will be for nothing. A concentrated dose in the tea should be enough for at least a few weeks of mental confusion." Sophia stopped the recording. "Grandma, she's not just trying to stop your recital. She wants to incapacitate you mentally, too." Mary felt sick. The woman she had welcomed into her family, whom she had treated like a daughter, was planning to destroy her mind, as well as her hands. "Sophia, we have to get out of this house. We can't just run. Where would we go? Besides, she has influence over Dad. He'd believe her version of events before ours." Sophia was right. Edward had been manipulated for so long that he would likely see any accusation against Christine as his mother's paranoia or mental confusion. So what do we do? Sophia took a deep breath, as if preparing to suggest something that frightened her. We're going to give her what she wants, but in a way that exposes her completely. What do you mean? She wants you to look crazy, confused, incapable. We'll pretend she succeeded, but we'll do it in front of witnesses who can see through the act. Sophia explained her plan. It was risky, dangerous, and depended on a perfect performance from both of them, but it was also brilliant in its simplicity. Grandma, you said Mrs. Clark, your piano teacher, has always been a true friend, right? Yes, she's one of the few people who truly understands my passion for music. And Dr. Stevens, the rheumatologist you saw. He seemed competent and caring. Perfect. Tomorrow you're going to pretend to have a nervous breakdown. You'll say you can't handle the pain and pressure anymore. You'll beg to go to the hospital. When you're there in front of doctors and nurses, you'll accuse Mom of poisoning you. Mary's eyes widened. Sophia, that's too dangerous. If they don't believe me, they will when they see the evidence. I'll bring everything. The photos, the recordings, the samples, and you won't be alone. I'm going to call Mrs. Clark and tell her everything. She can be our witness that you were perfectly lucid and capable before all this started. And what if your mother tries to stop me from going to the hospital? She can't. If you fake a convincing breakdown, she'll have to take you, or it will look like medical neglect, and I'll insist on going with you. It was a desperate plan, but perhaps it was the only chance they had. Mary spent the rest of the afternoon secretly practicing the piano, feeling her hands responding better and better as the poison left her system. It was painful to realize how much time she had lost, how much of her preparation for the recital had been sabotaged, but now a flame of determination burned within her that went far beyond music. When Christine returned home late that afternoon, Mary noticed she was carrying a small bag from the pharmacy. Mary's heart raced. What new torture was Christine planning? During dinner, the tension was palpable. Edward seemed uncomfortable, picking up on the waves of hostility emanating from his wife, but not fully understanding the situation. "How are you feeling today, Mum?" he asked. "A little better," Mary answered carefully, watching Christine tense up. "The pain has eased a bit." "That's great. Maybe you're recovering faster than the doctor predicted." Christine interrupted abruptly. "Actually, Edward, I spoke with Dr. Stevens today. He's concerned about Mary's erratic symptoms. He recommended a neurological evaluation." "A neurological evaluation?" Edward frowned. "Why?" "Mental confusion, paranoia, sudden mood swings. These are symptoms of early-onset dementia, especially in women her age." Sophia dropped her fork on her plate with a clatter. "Grandma doesn't have mental confusion." "Sophia, you're too young to understand these things," Christine said condescendingly. "Sometimes the symptoms are subtle at first." Mary saw the trap being set. Christine was laying the groundwork to declare that any accusation Mary made would be the product of senile dementia. "Christine," Mary said calmly, "I think you're being hasty. I don't have any symptoms of mental confusion." "Of course you'd say that. People with dementia rarely recognize their own symptoms." The clinical coldness with which Christine spoke was terrifying. It was as if she already had Mary committed and declared mentally incompetent. Later that night, Sophia came to Mary's room. "Grandma, she's moved up the timeline. Did you hear what she said about a neurological evaluation? If she can get a doctor to declare you have dementia, I'll lose all credibility," Mary finished. "No one will believe my accusations." "Exactly. We have to act tomorrow. We can't wait any longer." Sophia showed her what she had found in the pharmacy bag Christine brought home. More medicine. This time, anti-anxiety and antipsychotic drugs. "Grandma, she's planning to drug you until you actually seem confused." Mary felt a cold fear grip her. Christine wasn't just planning to sabotage her dreams, she was planning to steal her sanity, her credibility, her very identity. "Sophia, what if we can't do it?" "We will. But Grandma, there's something you need to know. I figured out why Dad is involved in this." Sophia showed her a text. message conversation she had managed to see on her father's phone when he was distracted. The messages were between Edward and Christine, dated 3 weeks ago. "Edward, your mother is becoming a problem. The attention she's getting with this piano is affecting our family. Christine, she's just following a dream. I don't see the problem. You don't see it because you're a man, but Sophia is starting to question me because of your mother. She thinks I don't support people's dreams. It's undermining my authority. What do you want me to do? Just back me up when I say it's better for her to stop this fantasy before she gets hurt. A public performance at 72 is ridiculous and dangerous. If you think it's what's best for her, I know what's best for this family." Mary read the messages with a broken heart. Edward wasn't a malicious conspirator. He was a weak man who had been manipulated by a controlling wife. Somehow, that hurt even more. "Grandma, tomorrow we end this once and for all. Either we expose the truth or—" Sophia didn't finish the sentence, but they both knew what was implied. If they failed, Mary could end up committed, medicated, and declared mentally incompetent. Christine would have won completely. But that night, for the first time in a week, Mary slept with determination instead of fear. Tomorrow would be the day of truth, and she was ready to fight for her life, her sanity, and her dreams with all the strength she had left. There were only 3 days until the recital, but first she would have to prove she was still the lucid, capable woman she had always been. The morning of the 8th day dawned with an electric tension that made the air feel heavy and charged. Mary woke before dawn, her heart beating like a war drum. Today was the day it would all be decided. Either she would expose the truth about Christine, or she would forever lose not only her dreams, but potentially her own freedom and sanity. Sophia came to her grandmother's room at 6 in the morning, carrying a discreet backpack with all the evidence they had collected. Her eyes were red from a sleepless night, but her determination was unshakable. "Are you ready, Grandma?" Mary nodded, despite the fear gnawing at her insides. "Let's do this." The plan was simple in theory, but terrifyingly complex in execution. Mary would stage a nervous breakdown during breakfast, insisting she could no longer bear the pain and confusion she was feeling. Sophia would support an immediate trip to the hospital, and there, in front of impartial medical professionals, they would present all the evidence. At 7 a.m., Christine appeared in the room with the usual tray, but this time she also brought the new medications she had bought at the pharmacy. "Good morning, Mary. I brought some new medicine that Dr. Stevens recommended to help with your recent confusion." Mary looked at the pills. They were clearly anti-anxiety and antipsychotic drugs. If she took them, she really would become confused and disoriented, completely validating Christine's narrative. "Christine," Mary said, her voice trembling, I'm not feeling well mentally. Sometimes I don't know where I am, sometimes I forget things." Christine's eyes lit up with poorly concealed satisfaction. This was exactly what she wanted to hear. "I know, dear. That's why I brought these. They'll help calm your mind. But what if I'm going crazy? What if someone is trying to hurt me?" Christine approached with an expression of false compassion. "Mary, these are just symptoms of your condition. No one is trying to hurt you. Your family loves you and wants to take care of you." Mary pretended to become more agitated. No. Someone is putting things in my food, in my medicine. I know they are." "Mary, you're having paranoid delusions. It's very common in people with early-onset dementia." Sophia chose that moment to enter the room, pretending to have just arrived home from school early. "Grandma, what's going on? I heard you yelling." "Sophia," Mary clung to her granddaughter as if she were a life raft. "Someone is trying to poison me. Her medicine isn't medicine, it's poison." Christine quickly took control of the situation. "Sophia, your grandmother is having a psychotic episode. It's a symptom of the dementia I've been suspecting." "Psychotic?" Sophia feigned confusion and fear. "Grandma, what are you talking about? The medicine she gives me isn't the same as what I've always taken. She swapped it for other things. She wants to drive me crazy." Christine sighed dramatically. "See? Classic paranoid delusions. I'm going to have to take her to the hospital immediately." "No!" Mary shouted, struggling to get out of bed. "Don't let her take me alone. She'll give me more poison on the way." Sophia pretended to be caught between fear and concern. "Mom, maybe I should go with you. Grandma trusts me. I can help calm her down." Christine hesitated. Bringing Sophia wasn't part of her plan, but Mary's hysteria was becoming difficult to manage alone. "Fine, but you stay in the car while I talk to the doctors." "No!" Mary gripped Sophia's arm tightly. "She can't talk to them alone. She'll lie about me. She'll say I'm crazy." "Mary, no one is going to say you're crazy," Christine said with theatrical patience. "We're just going to get you some medical help." During the drive to the hospital, Mary continued her performance, alternating between moments of lucidity and apparent paranoid outbursts. Christine drove with an expression of maternal suffering, frequently glancing in the rearview mirror at Sophia as if to say, "See how sick your grandmother is?" In the emergency room, Christine immediately went to the front desk with her posture of a concerned and responsible family member. "My mother-in-law is having what appear to be psychotic episodes, senile dementia, I believe. She's accusing the family of poisoning her." The nurse looked at Mary, who was being supported by Sophia, and seemed genuinely distressed. "Ma'am, can you tell me what you're feeling?" "They're trying to poison me," Mary said, pointing at Christine. "She swapped my medicine for other things. My hands got horrible after she started giving me different pills." "See?" Christine said to the nurse. "Paranoid delusions. She was perfectly normal until a few days ago." "Nurse," Sophia interrupted, her voice trembling but determined. "I need to speak with a doctor, alone. It's about my grandmother, but it's important." Christine turned quickly. "Sophia, there's no need. Mom, please, I just want to help Grandma." The nurse, experienced in complicated family situations, sensed the underlying tension. "Of course, dear. Dr. Mendez can speak with you in a few minutes." When Dr. Mendez arrived, Sophia asked to speak with him in private first. Christine protested, but the doctor, suspecting there might be complex family dynamics involved, agreed. In a private room, Sophia laid it all out. The photographs of the swapped medications, the audio recordings of Christine, the samples of the analyzed tea, and even the text messages between Christine and Edward. "Doctor, my mother is poisoning my grandmother to stop her from playing the piano in public. She wants to make everyone think my grandmother has dementia." Dr. Mendez examined the evidence with growing alarm. The photographs clearly showed substances that shouldn't be in routine medications, and the recordings were incriminating. "Sophia, these are very serious accusations. If this is true, it's attempted poisoning." "I know. That's why I brought proof. My grandmother isn't crazy, doctor. She's being systematically drugged." The doctor called in a toxicologist and a psychiatrist for an immediate evaluation. When they examined Mary, away from Christine's influence, they found a lucid, articulate woman who was completely capable of describing, in coherent detail, what had happened to her. "Dr. Santos," the psychiatrist said to her colleague, "this patient shows no signs of dementia or psychosis. She is clearly distressed, but her mental faculties are intact." Toxicology reports from Mary's blood confirmed the presence of multiple substances that perfectly explained her symptoms of inflammation and confusion. When Christine was called into the evaluation room, she found not only the doctors, but also 2 police officers who had been summoned to investigate the poisoning allegations. "Mrs. Johnson," Dr. Mendez said, "we have some questions about the medications you've been administering to your mother-in-law." Christine's face went pale when she saw the evidence spread out on the table. The photographs, the recordings, the samples, it was all there, completely disproving her narrative of senile dementia. I don't know what you're talking about." "Mrs. Johnson," the police officer said, "you are being accused of poisoning and attempting to incapacitate an elderly person. You have the right to remain silent." It was at that moment that Christine's mask finally fell completely. Seeing that she had been utterly exposed, she exploded in a rage that revealed the true nature she had hidden for so long. "She deserved it," she screamed. "The ridiculous old woman wanting to be a star at 72. She was ruining my family, making my daughter question me, making my husband pay more attention to her than to me. I am the important one in this family, not her." The confession was recorded and witnessed by multiple medical professionals. There was no longer any way to deny or pretend. As Christine was taken into police custody, Mary held Sophia's hand and cried, not from pain or fear, but from relief. The truth had finally come out. "Grandma," Sophia whispered, "there are only 2 days left until the recital." Mary looked at her hands, which were already beginning to regain their flexibility now that the poison was being flushed from her system. "Then we'd better start practicing." The 2 days following Christine's exposure passed in a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. Mary found herself torn between the relief of the truth finally being revealed and the grief for a family that had been irrevocably broken. Edward returned home that same night, devastated by the discovery of how he had been manipulated and the role he had inadvertently played in his own mother's torture. "Mum," he said, kneeling beside the armchair where Mary sat, carefully massaging her still recovering hands. "I have no words to ask for forgiveness. How could I have been so blind? How did I let this happen?" Mary looked at her son's face, seeing the boy she had raised, lost and confused by the discovery that the woman he loved was capable of such cruelty. "Edward, you were manipulated by someone you trusted. That doesn't make you a bad man, just a human one." "But I should have seen it. I should have questioned her when she said your dreams were inappropriate for your age. I should have seen through her lies." Sophia, watching the conversation from the couch, gently interjected. "Dad, Mum spent years building that facade of perfection. She fooled all of us in different ways." Edward looked at his daughter, noticing for the first time the maturity she had developed during this traumatic experience. "Sophia, how did you see through her when I couldn't?" "Because I'm a woman," Sophia answered, with a wisdom surprising for her 15 years. "And because I paid attention to Grandma's feelings, not just Mum's words." That night the 3 of them sat in the music room, looking at the piano that had been the center of so much pain and conflict in recent weeks. "Grandma," Sophia said hesitantly, "the recital is tomorrow. How are your hands?" Mary slowly flexed her fingers. The inflammation had drastically decreased in the last 48 hours, but she still felt stiffness and discomfort. More importantly, she had lost 2 crucial weeks of practice. Better, but far from ideal. "I don't know if I can play the Chopin ballade as I planned." "Mum," Edward said, "if you don't feel ready—" "No!" Mary interrupted him with a firmness that surprised everyone, including herself. "That woman spent weeks trying to steal my dreams. She almost made me believe I was a foolish old woman with delusions of grandeur. But I'm not. I'm Mary Johnson. I'm 72 years old, and I'm going to play piano on that stage tomorrow, even if it's the last thing I do." Edward and Sophia exchanged a look, recognizing the steel determination that had always defined Mary, but which had been temporarily obscured by poison and psychological manipulation. "Then we'd better start practicing," Sophia said, getting up to open the piano. The next 6 hours were the most intense of Mary's musical life. Her fingers were rusty, her hands ached, and her confidence had been severely shaken. But with Sophia by her side, offering emotional support, and Edward redeeming himself through constant encouragement, she slowly began to reconnect with the music that had been her passion. Chopin's Ballade No. 1 came out unevenly, with pauses where there was once fluidity, and hesitation where there should have been certainty. But with each repetition, something of what she had lost returned. "Grandma," Sophia said during a break, "maybe you should play something different tomorrow. Something you know by heart, without having to worry about the technique." Mary stopped and thought. Sophia was right. The ballade was too technically demanding for someone recovering from 2 weeks of poisoning. "There's a song," Mary began slowly, "that I used to play for you when you were little, Sophia, before you started formal lessons. Beethoven's Für Elise. I remember. You always said it was a song about hope overcoming sadness." Mary positioned her fingers on the keyboard and began to play the familiar melody. And it was as if the poison, the pain, and all the suffering of the past weeks dissolved. This song she knew not just with her hands, but with her heart. "This," she said with a genuine smile for the first time in weeks, "is the song I will play tomorrow." On the morning of the recital, Mary woke with a mix of nervousness and determination she hadn't felt since her youth. Edward had taken the day off to be there, and Sophia had skipped school with special permission. During breakfast, prepared by Edward, as no one trusted anything from a kitchen Christine had controlled, Mrs. Clark appeared at the door. "Mary, my dear student, how are you?" Mrs. Clark, a 68-year-old woman, with perfectly coiffed white hair and kind blue eyes, had been a piano teacher for over 40 years. When she learned from Sophia what had happened, she cancelled all her lessons for the day to be there. "Mrs. Clark, thank you for coming. Did you think I would miss the most important recital of my teaching career, a student who overcame poisoning to achieve her dream? Never." The teacher's presence brought a calm Mary didn't know she needed. Mrs. Clark had witnessed Mary's entire musical journey, from the first hesitant notes to the competent pianist she had become. "Mary," Mrs. Clark said, taking her hands and examining them fondly, "your hands may not be perfect today, but your musical soul is intact, and that's what the audience will hear." At 5 in the afternoon, they arrived at the City Conservatory. The historic building, with its imposing columns and manicured gardens, was filled with the families and friends of the performers. Mary felt her legs tremble when she saw the crowd. "Grandma," Sophia held her hand, "remember what you told me about it never being too late to achieve a dream?" Mary nodded. "Today you're going to prove that to hundreds of people. But more importantly, you've already proven it to yourself." Backstage, Mary met other performers, some her age, others younger, all united by a late-blooming passion for music. A 68-year-old woman was preparing to play the violin. A 75-year-old man was tuning his guitar. "First time?" the violinist asked. "Yes," Mary replied. "And you?" "Third." "It gets easier every time. The secret is to remember that no one in the audience wants you to fail. They're all rooting for you." When it was Mary's turn, she walked onto the stage with Sophia and Edward in the front row, and Mrs. Clark smiling proudly in the second. The grand piano gleamed under the stage lights, and for a moment she felt like that 15-year-old girl who secretly dreamed of playing in public. She sat at the bench, adjusted the height, and placed her fingers on the keys. For one terrible second her mind went completely blank. Her hands trembled, her heart raced, and she wondered if she had made a terrible mistake. Then she looked at Sophia in the audience, saw the tears of pride in her granddaughter's eyes, and remembered everything she had been through to get there. The poison, the lies, the manipulation, the physical and emotional pain, all of it had brought her to this moment. Mary began to play Für Elise, and from the very first note, something magical happened. Her hands may not have been perfect, there may have been an occasional hesitation, but the music that flowed from the piano carried decades of deferred hope, overcome suffering, and finally realized dreams. When she finished, the silence for a few seconds was absolute. Then the audience erupted in applause, and Mary saw that not only was Sophia crying, but so was half the audience. 6 months after that unforgettable recital, Mary was sitting at her piano on a sunny Sunday morning, preparing for her 5th public performance. What had begun as a nearly destroyed dream had transformed into a new musical career she could never have imagined. The music room had been completely renovated. Edward, consumed by guilt and determined to make amends, had installed a Steinway grand piano, the same model Mary had admired as a child in the house where her mother worked. It was an early birthday present, he said, to celebrate not just her 73rd year, but more importantly, her victory over those who tried to destroy her dreams. Sophia, now 16 and visibly more mature after everything she'd been through, entered the room carrying 2 cups of tea. "Ready for the final rehearsal, Grandma?" Mary smiled, accepting the tea she knew was prepared only by hands she completely trusted. The initial distrust had given way to a new awareness of the people around her, but also to an even greater appreciation for those who truly cared. "More than ready. Today we're playing something special." Sophia sat beside her grandmother on the piano bench. In recent months she had started piano lessons again, not because of pressure from anyone this time, but out of a genuine interest sparked by seeing her grandmother's passion for music. "The piece we chose is perfect," Sophia said, placing her hands on the keys. 2 pianos, 4 hands, 3 generations of women. It was true. For this afternoon's benefit concert, organized to help elderly women who were victims of domestic violence, they had prepared a four-hand version of Vivaldi's Spring, arranged by Mrs. Clark especially for them. Edward appeared at the door, now a man visibly more attuned to his family's emotional dynamics. The divorce from Christine had been finalized 3 months after her arrest. She was sentenced to 2 years in prison for poisoning and attempting to incapacitate an elderly person, and was also required to cover all of Mary's medical and psychological expenses. "How are my 2 favorite pianists?" "Nervous," Sophia admitted. "It's my first time playing in public." "And excited," Mary added. "It's my first time sharing the stage with my granddaughter." Edward came over and kissed his mother's forehead. In recent months, he had dedicated himself to rebuilding his relationship with her, actively participating in her new musical journey and making sure she knew how much she was admired and respected. "Mom, I wanted you to know I invited some special friends to the concert today." "Special friends?" "Some of the nurses and doctors from the hospital who took care of you that day. And Dr. Stevens, too. He said you're an example of resilience for all his elderly patients." Mary felt her eyes well up. The support network that had formed around her in recent months was something she had never experienced before. People who genuinely celebrated her achievements instead of trying to diminish them. 2 hours later, in the auditorium of the Cultural Foundation, Mary and Sophia took the stage before an audience of 200 people. In the front row, Edward smiled proudly beside Mrs. Clark. In the rows behind them, a mix of family, friends, and supporters of the cause the concert was benefiting. As the two sat at the twin pianos and placed their hands on the keys, Mary had a moment of complete clarity. 6 months ago, she was being poisoned by someone who was supposed to care for her, her dreams systematically destroyed by pure envy and malice. Today she was sharing a stage with her granddaughter, playing music that would help other women recover from similar situations. Vivaldi's music filled the auditorium, each note played with precision and emotion. Mary watched Sophia's nimble hands complementing her own, 2 generations united by music and by an experience that had made them stronger. When they finished, the ovation was deafening. People stood, cheered, and some wept openly. But for Mary, the most special moment was when Sophia took her hand and whispered, "Thank you for teaching me that we should never let anyone steal our dreams." 3 months later, Mary received an unexpected letter. It was from Christine, written from prison. Edward had hesitated before giving it to her, but Mary insisted on reading it. The letter was brief and surprisingly sincere. "Mary, I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I need you to know that I've spent these months in prison trying to understand how I became capable of what I did. The mandatory therapy has helped me see that my need to be the center of attention came from my own deep insecurities. That doesn't justify what I did, but it explains it. You deserved none of what you suffered. Your talent, your courage, and your determination are inspiring, not threatening. I hope that one day you can forgive me, but I understand if you never can. You are an extraordinary woman, and I am ashamed that I tried to erase that. Christine." Mary folded the letter and put it away in a drawer. Forgiveness would be a long journey, perhaps an impossible one, but understanding Christine's motivations helped her process the trauma and move on. Today, a year after that first, nearly lost recital, Mary Johnson is preparing for her 10th public performance. She has become a well-known figure in the city's music circles, not just for her skill, but for her story of overcoming adversity. Young pianists seek her out for advice, and she always tells them the same thing. It's never too late to achieve a dream, and never let anyone convince you otherwise. Sophia, now an accomplished developing pianist, plans to pursue a career in music and dreams of one day performing alongside her grandmother at Carnegie Hall. Edward has become an active advocate for elder rights and funds a project that offers free music lessons to people over 60. And Mary continues to play the piano every day, not just because she loves the music, but because every note is a declaration that she survived, she prevailed, and she will never again allow anyone to try to silence her dreams. Mary Johnson's story proves that true strength comes not from never falling, but from always finding a way to get back up. And sometimes when we rise, we discover we are stronger and more capable than we ever imagined. End of story. Dear listeners, we hope the story of Mary, Sophia, and Edward has touched your heart. If you are moved by Mary's courage in fighting for her dreams and the truth, and by Sophia's strength in protecting her grandmother from silent malice, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments what part of this story resonated with you the most. Every day, we bring you intense stories like this one, revealing the deepest side of the human soul, showing that it's never too late to start over, that truth always prevails over lies, and that true family love can overcome any adversity. Mary's story teaches us that our dreams don't have an expiration date, and that the courage of one determined person can inspire entire generations. We'll see you in the next episode with another narrative that will stir your emotions and make you reflect on the importance of defending our dreams and protecting those we love.